King Cameron and his friends.
Lord Freud helped King Cameron and his friends
Get even richer by taxing the bedrooms of the village.
get even richer by taxing the bedrooms of the village.
So the villagers had to move away. These made the evil triplets Ian, Duncan and Smith very happy.
These made the evil triplets Ian, Duncan and Smith very happy.
The mean court jester Osborne danced in celebration.
The mean court jester Osborne danced in celebration.
The villagers were sad and scared.
The villagers were sad and scared.
But one day, a band of warriors called UK Uncut realised that the evil Lord Freud had lots of bedrooms. One day, a band of warriors called UK Uncut realised that the evil Lord Freud had lots of bedrooms. So they journeyed across 3 zones of Londinium to Lord Freud's castle in the very highest of gates. So they journeyed across the 3 zones of Londinium to Lord Freud's castle in the very highest of gates. Lord Freud realised he was outnumbered and moved out of his big house.
Lord Freud realised he was outnumbered and moved out of his house.
The villagers moved in.
The villagers moved in.
The villains were defeated.
The villains were defeated.
And everyone lived happily ever after.
And everyone lived happily ever after.
And again, why are we here?
Why are we here?
Lord Freud is the Minister for Welfare Reform.
Lord Freud is the Minister for Welfare Reform.
Lord Freud demanded people are taxed on their bedrooms.
Lord Freud demanded that people are taxed on their bedrooms.
Even though he owns this house and an 8-bedroom country mansion.
Even though he owns this house and an 8-bedroom country mansion.
Lord Freud is the man who gave us Athos.
Lord Freud is the man who gave us Athos.
Lord Freud is meddling with the welfare system.
Lord Freud is meddling with the welfare system.
Even though he admits he knows nothing about it.
Even though he admits he knows nothing about it.
Lord Freud, a multi-millionaire,
Lord Freud, a multi-millionaire,
wants to reduce the income of the country's poorest people.
wants to reduce the income of the country's poorest people.
Who wants to evict a millionaire? Hello, UK Uncutters! I'm Isabel and I work with migrant women and I am outraged by the bedroom tax. So, there's been a lot of focus on the word spare recently. Spare bedrooms. I think it's an interesting word and I wonder what it means to the millionaire man in power whose house we are outside today and to his colleagues. When the government began discussing these supposedly dispensable spare things in the lives of those in social housing, I wonder whether it brought to mind the spare things in their world. The spare houses in London and Oxfordshire that David Cameron enjoys, his numerous prime ministerial cars, or the 10 empty bedrooms at Chequers perhaps. Lord Freud and his colleagues certainly weren't thinking what spare means to those whose housing benefits they're cutting by 14 to 25%.
Yes!
Yes!
I wonder if they had any thoughts going spare, whether they'd have considered the families offering a place of respite to a daughter in the grip of domestic violence, or a couple who have been separated but wish to challenge gender norms by sharing the caring responsibilities of their child? Yeah. Or maybe a single mother anxiously awaiting her first child and worrying how she's going to provide for it in this age of austerity. £14 a week may be spare cash in the pockets of wealthy politicians, but it's the difference between adequately feeding a family and choosing to stay warm. If such a small sum is hard for these millionaires in power to comprehend, then perhaps the estimated £2.3 billion that are going to hit family finances as a result of benefit cuts and tax rises is more economically comprehensible for them. In disregarding the estimates that the bedroom tax is going to affect around 670,000 households, this government is showing how disconnected and uncompassionate they are when it comes to those who are not dripping with privilege. So this figure of over 500,000 of those affected is going to comprise of so many people, from elderly couples who have brought up their children in a family home, to families supporting children with disabilities, and a significant number of carers, the majority of which I'd like to say are women. This is an issue which transcends social categories, and that's why I'm so happy to see so many people here today. But I do want to mention that this bedroom tax is going to disproportionately affect women, as with so many of the austerity measures. Over 1 million more women than men claim housing benefits due to the caring responsibilities shouldered by our gender, our comparatively lower pay, and our struggle to manage paid work and unpaid domestic labour. Of a figure that's expected to rise to £9 million over the next 20 years, 58% of these are women carers. And if we're forced to give up work because of the demands of caring, we'll be earning around £1.67 an hour for their time, care and compassion. I wonder if Lord Freud can even imagine what that would be like. Yeah. This bedroom tax is hitting primary carers and therefore a higher percentage of women, particularly hard. So it's as carers, single mothers, domestic violence survivors and supporters of women's rights that we're going to take a stand against this tax drawn up by those who are so far removed from our lives they can't even understand our lack of need for the word spare. As we're contemplating the legacy of Thatcherism today, I think it's important to remember that while she may have been the first woman Prime Minister, her hatred for feminism as a poison meant that the glass ceiling was firmly pushed down on our heads. Women are now facing the highest unemployment in 25 years, and we're being increasingly targeted by the government cuts as this legacy of neoliberal inhumanity continues to ripple through our nation. So it's as men and women that we need to stand by our sisters and say no! No! We need to let the government know that under their bedroom tax, not counting foster children as part of a household is despicable. For a Conservative-led coalition who seems to pride themselves on family values, we need to let them know that creating a hierarchy out of the needs of disabled individuals is despicable. And to burden families and children, and disproportionately women, as a result of the bedroom tax is despicable. Yay! The government needs to spare us their neoliberal agenda and end this ideological war against the everyday citizen of the UK. Surely Cameron should understand where we're coming from. He lives in the most famous form of social housing imaginable. Yay! So, we are the 99% and we do not understand your concept of spare. Thank you. Yay! have joined forces with UK Uncut.
Have joined forces with
This is written by me, Joe, and Mariah. Dear Dave. We called to see you on Saturday.
We called to see you on Saturday.
But you didn't seem to be in. Maybe you were in one of your many spare rooms. We wondered if you could spare a thought for the foster children.
We wondered if you could spare a thought for the foster children.
The people with disabilities. And carers struggling to spare the money. For themselves and their families. Wish you were here. Joe, Mariah and Tom.
Mic check. Dear Lord Freud. Spelt fraud deliberately. I work with FE students in East London. Many of whom are disabled. All of whom are poor. Many of them work. But earn so little they have to claim benefits. They have to choose every day. Between buying food for their children. Paying their gas bills. The council tax you put on them. The rent top-ups. And food for themselves. How dare you add yet another tax? And destroy their lives. From Elaine. And Hackney UCU.
Lord Freud. We are here today. Gathered outside your home. Because we, as part of the 99%, are angry and disgusted that you expect people to cope with 14 to 25% cut in income in times of extreme austerity. You talk about making up the shortfall as if it is simple. But how do you expect people to make up the shortfall when jobs are so scarce? You can stop your bedroom tax where the sun doesn't shine.
To David. As if workfare wasn't enough. To erode people's dignity. You take what little they have left. Forcing them to choose. Between eating and heating. The 99%. P.S. Build some more houses. PPS. Help to buy will only further enrich the wealthy. PPPS. You are rich enough that you do not need a job. If you were a good person, you would give your job to an unemployed person. Who might actually have a clue about how to manage a public welfare system.
Looking over your shoulder.
us a cheer for being out on this cold Saturday afternoon. A cheer for yourselves. Because it's really important to keep delivering the message, despite what the right-wing media says, that there is very strong resistance to the bedroom tax, to the council tax benefit cuts, to the disability living allowance cuts, the list goes on and on and on. And when we explain to people the facts, people do understand that the people at the bottom of our society have to be given a basic decent standard of living. And I'll give you an example of that, because one of Lord Freud's neighbours here, and I won't point exactly to her house because she mightn't want to be too singled out, but there's some biscuits going round. Yeah! And she came out to bring them for us to support the campaign. I know well, because I live in Camden, and this ward, council ward here in Highgate, we have a Green councillor, Maya D'Souza. So I've leafleted and I've canvassed all of these streets. And what you can find in these streets, even here in Highgate, there's some very, very rich people, like Lord Freud. And just down the hill, there's a lot of very poor people. People who are struggling, people who don't know where tomorrow's lunch money's coming from. People who aren't really sure where next week's rent money's coming from. People who really don't know if they can pay their mortgage. And all of those people, we have to remember this, because it doesn't often feel like it. All of those people, we are all living in the world's 6th richest country. That is what Britain is. And there should be plenty for everybody. Yeah! But what's happening is the 1%, among whom Lord Freud, ex-financier certainly is, have been taking more and more, and there's less and less for everybody else. Inequality, a few years ago, was back at the levels of the early 1930s. Now it's down to the levels of Victorian times, and that just absolutely has to stop. The rich must pay their taxes, and big companies, multinational companies, must pay their taxes. George Osborne was celebrating at the budget when he said, "I'm taking corporate tax rate down to just 20%, just like small businesses." He was there like a bantam cock strutting around. We have to say to George, no, that's not right. The rich must pay their taxes, multinationals must pay their taxes, and the poor must get their fair share. Thank you.